So yeah, I saw how some of you did your storyline examples, and yeah, most of you understood it, right? Most of you understood it. So yeah, if you understood it well, you could have gotten some good trades, right? Even on Monday, we had a good trade using storyline. Now, of course, the weekly storyline was a bit confusing. I thought we were still bullish, but it looks like we're still bullish. We can't confirm that weekly has turned bearish until this week's candle ends. And today is what? Today's Tuesday. Yeah, we have 4 more days, I think. So after that candle ends, we could decide what's going to happen. But we could follow the daily storyline, right? We can follow the daily storyline. Now, did you see what happened in here? Right? It was clearly a storyline setup, right? It was clearly a storyline setup. Now, what did the daily candle do in here? What did it do? Daily has closed below a daily resistance. Can you see that? Right? Daily closed below that daily resistance. And if you drop to H4, what has the H4 done? H4 has given you a breakout, right? H4 has clearly given you a break of structure right here. So which means now we could come to a conclusion that daily is in a bearish storyline, right? Because these are the two factors that we need, yeah, for a storyline to start. Daily has to reject daily, and then one time frame lower, which means the H4 has to give you a breakout structure. So we clearly have that, right? We clearly have the at the start of the week, right? Now I'll explain why I was expecting a bullish move on the weekly time frame, because now this candle, it never started any storylines, right? This candle never started any storylines, because now we can see how weekly, yeah, it did reject a weekly support. We can see that this one, as this was the monthly level, that could be refined to this weekly open close, right? We had that, and then yeah, we had this very clearly, right? We had this thing in here, right? We had this trend line and all that. So yeah. So we had that very clearly. Now, the reason I told you weekly is bullish is because this candle never started any storylines, right? So this candle never started any storylines. So if this candle didn't start any storylines, we could refer to the previous candle, right? The one before this. So this candle did start a storyline, because why? Weekly closed below that weekly support, right? Above that weekly support, sorry. And then once you go to the daily created that bullish QM right here, right? We had the bullish breakout. So that's why I told you weekly must still be bullish, right? Weekly must still be bullish, because I told you, how does a storyline end? A storyline ends the same way it started, right? So now a bullish storyline started here, but it never ended, right? But it never ended. So that is why I was still looking for buys. And that's okay, because now if you're going to buy this thing, right? If you're going to buy this thing the next week, what's the closest weekly zone for a buy? This one, right? This is the closest zone we have for a buy. Now we can come to a conclusion that weekly is still bullish, but if you go to daily, daily is still bearish, right? Daily is still bearish, because we saw how Friday's candle started a bearish storyline by rejecting a daily resistance and H4 broke structure. Now, what you could do is you could use the daily storyline setup and then take a sell back into the weekly zones, right? Because these 100 pips away. Why wouldn't you just Yeah, why would you just wait until the market gets here? You can always grab that opportunity, right? We have 100 pips, right? So now, where can you take a sell from, right? That's the question. Where can you take a sell from? Now, if you zoom in, if you pay close attention, what is this? A newly created daily resistance, right? A new daily resistance has been created. Now, if you go to H4, right? If you go to H4, this is where it is, right? This is where it is. And yeah, I showed it, right? I sent you this chart in the group. We had this trend line as confluence. Now, what can you do? If you are taking sells, your safest target should be here. That's a 100 pip target, right? That'll be a 100 pip target. And also now, today I took 2 losses, trying to buy here and in here. Okay, because I have to accept it, right? Now I can't just make up reasons and tell you, oh no, I dodged this move or whatever. I can't tell you that, right? Now what I normally do is, now I have a set of rules that I've set for myself, right? So which means I wouldn't take, what I do is I take only 3 trades a day. If I take 3 losses in a row, I wouldn't trade for the whole day. That is what I do. Okay, so now what I did was, now look at this. This whole thing was a weekly support, right? There's a weekly support. If you go to the daily has also created 2 new supports, and open close and this, right? We can see that very clearly. We have this. Now, I thought, okay, since weekly was still bullish, we could refine these into lower time frames and we can take buys. Okay, so this is how I refined it. Let me show you. These are the daily zones. The first zone, I refined it here. Okay, now this is what I normally do. For high risk setups, I risk 0.30%. Okay, now of course not on prop firms. Okay, so I only place, yeah, we go through all these topics. Okay, we go through all these topics. Now on prop firm accounts, what you could do is place only confirmation entries. I'll explain all that in the upcoming sessions. But on your personal accounts, you could go with high risk, medium risk, and low risk, all three. Okay, so now this what I'm doing is these types of entries I'll be placing on my personal account because